I think that the lack of reasonable and compassionate dialogue is one of the biggest problems driving a lot of our issues, at least politically, here in the
It is.
United States. And, on one hand, you have debate where you have two sides representing their perspective and making good points, but there's that lack of compassion that is just completely lost through that form of dialogue, or I don't know if you'd call that dialogue, but through that form of spectacle, perhaps.
So yeah, I agree, and I don't know if you wanted to say more, but yeah, I agree totally about that.
Well, I was just going to say, and then on the other side, you have kind of the more Socratic dialogue. I don't know if you're familiar with street epistemology.
A little. Tell me more. I think I might know what you mean.
So it's a form of dialogue practice. I think it was first introduced by Peter Boghossian. Boghossian, might be
Right, right,
butchering his name,
right.
but it's also practiced by this gentleman named Anthony Magnabosco, and he has a YouTube channel where he interviews random people on the streets, asking them about their core beliefs and doing nothing but asking questions to help them understand what their beliefs are based on, which
No, I don't
is,
know this.
yeah, I actually just interviewed him for the podcast as well, which is really exciting. But what I was going to say is you have these kind of two extremes. One, the debate where there's no compassion or understanding for the other perspective, really. You're just trying to score points. And then you have his where he's not making his case. So you get the lack of that other perspective. And it sounds
Right,
like the
right.
anti-debate is trying to land somewhere in the middle there.
And yes, you could say that. So it's still in in development. And we actually have given ourselves some time to develop it because we think designing a new social and epistemic praxis will take time. It's not obvious what it should be yet, and we need to think it through. But what I would say is that dialogue, when it's done well, is a beautiful thing, and people almost flow into each other, and you feel alive, and it's intimate, and it's humanizing. But it's not always easy to scale it. It's not always easy to find forms of dialogue that everyone wants to watch. It's not necessarily exciting, or it's not necessarily a spectacle. So yes, there's a place for dialogue, and there's also a place for debate properly understood. But what seems to have happened with debate is that it's become more about winning and playing to your own crowd and finding attack lines that stick and they get reported on in the news, and trying to strawman the opponent's arguments so that you can get a powerful argument in there that pleases your crowd. When you're actually trying to really understand something, you try and represent the opponent's view at its very strongest, so much so that they even begin to see it more clearly themselves because of your contribution. But I'm not one of these people who thinks that all competition is bad. I think there's something quite noble and beautiful about competition properly understood. And that's something I write about in the Moves That Matter as well, because chess is a very competitive endeavor. And there is a sense in which by trying to attack the opponent's king, you are trying to kind of kill them. It's sublimated violence, but there is aggression in it. And I think that's part of being human too. So yes, there's the kind of love and empathy and compassion of dialogue, and we need that. But I don't think it would be right to disavow the qualities of expansive, conquest, or the desire to really excel oneself, and the opponent is there to help you excel yourself. So in the context of the anti-debate, the challenge is, can these things coexist? Can you have competitive collaboration or collaborative competition? It's a paradoxical hybrid, and we don't know yet how it will look, but we think our early experiments suggest that it might well work. And what you're competing for, though, is not so much substantively that your side will win. What you're being awarded for is your epistemic prowess, if you like, your capacity to really see clearly. And that includes everything from representing the opponent's view at its strongest, but it's also how well you wield metaphor, how imaginatively you can represent alternative views, the quality and vividness of your examples. the capacity to persuade the crowd, but also to for the crowd to feel they've learned in the process. So there's a lot going on in terms of what we decide to award and how we create a practice that honors all of that.
Mm-hmm.